So what did they do? What was the big deal here? They wanted to improve the traffic patterns in Boston. So they tore down the 3-lane elevated highway above the city and instead replaced it with a 3-lane tunnel underneath the city in order to improve the traffic flow. Makes a lot of sense for $20 billion. Before that, they had a plan here in Boston that would have alleviated the traffic congestion, which is now known as Sergeant's Bowling Alley. Well, it was known as Sergeant's Bowling Alley. It was a dead-end ramp on the upper deck of Route 93. And they were supposed to continue Route 95 through the south end of Boston, through Roxbury, and through Milton, where it would eventually hitch up with Route 95 in Canton. It would be a straight line route. But the people living in Milton decided they didn't want the highway because they went by the philosophy, not in my backyard. So they killed the whole project. And as a result of that now, people in Milton have to circumnavigate the whole city of Boston. If they work in Boston, they have to go through either through Quincy, consequences of events.
Yep.
So that's really what separates the sheep from the goats. Is the ones who are able to foresee the consequences are the ones who history judges more favorably. The ones who don't foresee the consequences are like Mr. Nice Guy, but nice guys finish last. Now, are you guys up for a bite to eat or anything?
12:30. What's your favorite place?
My favorite place is it's in Reading, and it's known as the Longhorn Steakhouse. It's actually near my house. And if you have any interest, we could always pop over to my house and see the doggy.
It's up to Michael. I'm good for it.
I'm good for it too.
Alright, so you want to
Let's head out to Reading.
head out to Reading. And we're going to go to Longhorn Steakhouse. And it's on me.
Wow. What's your,
I'll be a sport.
what is your favorite entree?
Filet mignon.
Doesn't surprise me.
I also like the porterhouse quite a bit, but I'm kind of trying to curtail my food intake. It's a mammoth challenge for me because I'm a mammoth. So us woolly mammoths have to be on diets. Well, I have the paper routes when I work, so that gets me running around a little bit, and every so often I go out and take hikes in the Blue Hills, or sometimes I get out to Mount Wachusett or New Hampshire and I take long hikes. I do better with that in the fall. I don't do well in the summer heat.
Is there a gym at your condo place?
There is, but the problem is mentally I can't get myself motivated to go to a gym or do anything once I get there. It's just no connection.
What about basketball?
Basketball, I used to be a great basketball player. But now, in my elder days, it's depressing to even think about getting on a basketball court because I can't even come close to doing some of the things that I did when I was younger and faster and stronger and better.
Were you like Bob Cousy or John Havlicek?
I played like, I guess who I was compared to is Earl Monroe. I was a speed guy, basically.
Good dribbler? Handled the ball well?
I was a pretty good dribbler, not great. I became an expert outside shooter.
3-point range?
3-point range, any range. I could run and jump like all get out. And I had phenomenal speed. I was tough to stop when I had the ball. I was hard to defend against. But hand-eye coordination was my downfall. In addition to the fact of my height. Not being extremely tall is a handicap, but I was able to jump pretty damn good. And I could pass the ball really well. I just didn't play any defense. That was a big problem.
You couldn't really block a shot?
Once in a while I blocked shots, but I would fall asleep on defense. I didn't have good reflexes. So, I mean, I could jump, but I wasn't a smart player. That's probably the problem.
Didn't have good ball sense?
Didn't have any ball sense. That was a situation with basketball. And then I lost my knees. My meniscus tendon went out.
Oh, wow.
You know, after that, I was DUN done. So I had to take up another sport, like throwing newspapers on porches. That's where I get most of my exercise. And walking. So, despite all that, I can't complain. I mean, for my age, what do you expect? I had all kinds of strange ideas for songs, such as John Landy. You know John.
Yeah.
He had an ex-girlfriend years and years and years ago by the name of Lee. So Rich Mursky asked me if I would write a song about her. And I never met her before. I had no idea at all who she was. I knew nothing about her at all. But I decided to write a song about her anyway. So I made up different details. I gave her a personality and wrote a song about her called What About Me? And like I say, I had no idea who she was or anything, but just the fact that Rich asked me to write a song about her, that just kind of struck a chord, and I said, sure, why the hell not? I'm going to do this. I can do this. So I did. And then when I was in college, I had the suite mate by the name of Alan Berkowitz. And Alan Berkowitz asked me to write a song about him. So I did. I wrote a song called My Name is Alan Berkowitz, Berkowitz, and that's on the original album that was put out by Eric Lindgren, and it's on vinyl put out by Mighty Mouth Music. And I wrote that song back in 67, I think. So that's how I write songs, basically. And
well, I mean, what comes first, lyrics or melody?
It kind of comes like at the same time. It's a total gestalt, and it all kind of hits me at once. It just
When do you find that your ideas come more frequently? Where are you? What are you doing?
My ideas come the most frequently when I'm wide awake, when I'm intellectually inspired, when I'm thinking about a lot of different items and a lot of different ideas are going through my head. I kind of get mentally energized, and I'm able to picture different melodies and lyrical lines, and it all kind of hits me that way. It's a fairly unconscious process where I just kind of mull stuff over in my head like a smorgasbord, and I pull ideas out of my head like pieces of spaghetti from a bowl full of chicken poop soup.
How about giant toads?
Giant toads, I know more about giant toads than anyone on the planet. I wrote more songs about frogs and toads than anyone else on the planet.
Why?
Well, one day, and I was brought up in Newton, and I lived across the street from the Braeburn Country Club. There was a pond there called Braeburn Pond. And there were a lot of toads there and frogs. When I was growing up, I always saw frogs and toads. And one day, I was walking along my street, which was Day Street, and I saw something flat lying by the side of the road. And it was a flattened toad. Apparently a car had run over the toad. And the toad was flattened like a pancake and was lying by the side of the road. And that made an indelible impression on my young formulating brain, because it was something that was far into my realm of consciousness. I wasn't really that used to the idea of an organism, an animal, being made completely flat by an automobile. So it struck a chord and it registered with me, and it's something that I've been giving some very intense thought to, really for the majority of my adult life. And I've often wondered what it would be like to see a toad that was 20 feet long and that weighed maybe 25 tons. Like a toad the size of 2 elephants. I've given that a lot of thought. And I've really asked myself the question, now why, when God created all the animals on the planet, didn't he bother to create a toad that would be 25 tons? I still have no answer to that question. And all the experts in evolution and biology have not been able to answer that question for me. And then you have salamanders, you have chameleons, You have a lot of wondrous creatures on this planet. Dogs are amazing too. The dogs are more human than any of these other creepy crawly reptiles that inhabit the underbellies of the environment. So I've decided that that's the biggest problem with the world today, is that people just do not give enough attention to frogs and toads and salamanders and, well, I would say scorpions, but they do give scorpions a lot of attention, especially in Mexico. But when was the last time you ever heard anybody talk about a salamander? I mean, that subject never comes up. And that irks me no end.
Where exactly is Reading?
Next to writing and arithmetic. Now, Reading is in the North Shore, and it's next to Wilmington. And you know where Wilmington is?
Yeah.
It's next to Reading. So this tunnel should have been named the Bill Russell Tunnel. And I don't know why it wasn't. Maybe some people are just racists. Maybe in this case, they're right. Bill Russell was treated like a dog when he was in Boston. And he, along with Ted Williams, were the best athletes to ever play in this town. Bill Russell was one of my favorite athletes of all time. Maybe my most favorite athlete of all time. And I think Bill Russell was given a raw deal here in Boston. Although I will say that when he was a coach, Bill Russell was not a very good coach for the Seattle Supersonics before they moved to Oklahoma City. Bill Russell just didn't seem to have the knack for coaching, but he was a tremendous player, one of the greatest basketball players of all time. And certainly a much better basketball player than Larry Bird. Larry Bird was a great player as well, but he wasn't in the same category as Russell or Michael Jordan or Wilt Chamberlain, who I view as the very best basketball player of all time, bar none. And the only reason he didn't win all the championships Russell did is because he didn't have the kind of players around him that Russell had. And he didn't have Red Auerbach either. So now we are heading to the North Shore, going through Auburn and Stoneham. The city of Stoneham, you know what it was named after? Somebody once threw a rock at a pig, so that's where they get the name Stoneham. And you know where they get the name Framingham? Somebody once took a picture of a pig. And you know where they get the name Dedham? Somebody once killed a pig. Actually, we had a former governor of Massachusetts by the name of Endicott Peabody. They used to call him Chub Peabody. They called him Chub Peabody because he was a little bit on the rotund side. They could have called him P. Chub Body because he had a chubby body. But there were 2 towns in Massachusetts which were actually named after former Governor Endicott Peabody. And the 2 towns were Peabody and Marblehead. When Bill Russell moved to the Boston area, he and his wife decided to move to the town of Reading. So they lived in Reading, and there were some moron racists in Reading. So in one of Russell's games, they broke into his house and smeared human excrement all over his mirror and all over his bed. They completely trashed his house. And when Russell came back to his house, he was horrified. And when I found out about that, I was even more horrified than he was. I wanted to personally string those guys up myself. I couldn't believe it. It just freaked me out when I heard that. I wanted to kill the guys that broke into his house. It just bothered me. It's bothered me for years, seriously.
Did they catch them?
I don't think they ever did. But I've always thought that if there was any way I could find out who those people were, I would personally punch them out. Guaranteed. I would go after all of them. I don't care if there were 6 of them. I would clean house. I would beat the living daylights out of those human vermin. And the other thing about Russell is, back in the day, they had a charity game in the state of Kentucky, which was orchestrated because there were 2 alumni from the University of Kentucky who were stars in the NBA. There was Frank Ramsey, who played for the Celtics, and Cliff Hagan, who played for the St. Louis Hawks before they moved to Atlanta. And I'm talking, this must have been back like sometime in the late 50s when they had this benefit game. So the Celtics were going to this restaurant in Kentucky, and Bill Russell wrote about this in his book, Second Wind. And they went to this restaurant in Kentucky, and they wouldn't let Russell and Casey Jones and Sam Jones eat at the restaurant because of the color of their skin. And they told them to get out, and they wouldn't allow them into the restaurant. Now, as a result of that, Russell and the black players on the Celtics decided to leave the game, and they didn't play the game. So the game was just played among certain white players. Now, if I were there, if I were on the team, I would have been the first one out of there. I would have told everybody, come on, we're out of here. I don't need all this crap. These people are garbage. I'm never going to step foot in the state again. They can all go to hell as far as I'm concerned. Because the way I reacted was purely visceral. When I heard about this, I freaked out. Just hit a raw nerve. And I don't care. That's how I react to stuff. I mean, something like that happens, I just react viscerally. Especially something like that. It was like I was physically there and they were telling me I couldn't eat at the restaurant. That's how I felt. So, anyone who tells me that I don't know how it feels to be, to experience racial inequality or prejudice or racism. Anybody who says that I don't know how that feels because I'm white, that's a bunch of baloney, because I know how that feels more than anyone else knows how it feels. Because I feel it hits a nerve, it freaks me out, and it's something that I won't personally tolerate. Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck, his good buddy Donald Duck, they decided to go into business together and open up a chain of fast food restaurants. So Mickey Mouse and his good buddy Donald Duck opened up a chain of fast food restaurants. And I bet that nobody knows what they call their chain of fast food restaurants, Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck. Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck opened up a chain of fast food restaurants, and they decided to call it McDonald's. Ha 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 ha.
What's the story
I'm so clever.
What's the story behind Burger King then?
The story behind Burger King is there was a king in England who didn't know the difference between a booger and a burger and a burglar and a bugger and a bungler. But now here's another one about Mickey Mouse. I bet you don't know what Mickey Mouse's middle name was.
Fucker.
The.
What is your fascination with aardvarks, though?
Well, that was part of the main question that Aram Heller asked me in that huge interview he did when Eric Lindgren put out that double CD of my early works. He said, "What's with the aardvark?" And aardvark as a word has always fascinated me because it's the very first word in the dictionary. A-A-R-D-V-A-R-K, aardvark. First word in the dictionary other than a, which isn't really a word, it's more or less a letter. But
Is that because it's a Dutch word? It's a weird spelling?
Well, also because of my last name. They used to call me the aardvark.
You should put 2 A's in your name.
Yeah, I should put 2 A's in my name.
I like that.
I really should. And when people discuss miscellaneous items that don't really fall into a category, such as myself, they put a heading on that called aardvarks. Like in that heading in a different magazine, you might find an ad for a machine that mashes tomatoes. You might find somebody sending a letter to a dog that died 175 years ago. So they're all different, varying and sundry items that don't fit together. You know what that noise is? Most people who aren't wearing a seatbelt realize they're not wearing a seatbelt. So that's like a reminder, and it's like saying, stupid, 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 stupid. That's what that tone is actually saying. But instead of that, it just says bap, 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 bap. Anywhere within driving distance of Massachusetts, I need to get notified. That's the deal I have. With everybody in the human race, of course. Yeah, actually I do have a...
It'd be good to show your face a little more.
All right.
Well, the women are going to love it.
Yeah, maybe
You're going to get laid
will.
so heavily on this. I mean, literally heavily. Heavy women are going to want to fuck you.
Maybe I will do something about my face. The face is a terrible thing to waste. We're going to Porta Classica, which is a clothing store where I purchase most of my clothing. The reason I prefer to shop there is because the clothes you get there are the real McCoy. You don't have to deal with substandard quality. You don't pay an arm and a leg to get stuff that's just going to make you look like you fit in with the ugly masses. You get clothes there that stand out, impeccable quality. You get the best. The one thing that I can't seem to figure out about giant anteaters is a giant anteater a huge anteater, or is it just a normal size anteater that eats giant ants? Also, the other thing I can't figure out is what's the difference between an anteater and an Auric XL100 vacuum cleaner? Is there anybody who might be able to differentiate between an anteater and an Auric XL100 vacuum cleaner?
One's electric.
Well, I think one, yeah, that's a good point. You don't have very many electric anteaters, unless they're on the dance floor. But the other thing, an anteater is not able to lift a 15-pound bowling ball. You really need to be courteous on the highway, because just getting there 2 or 3 minutes earlier, there's no reason to risk getting into an accident.
What kind of solo?
Harmonious to think about girls going to jail, especially when they're attempting to attain the highest elective office in the land. Then they really belong in jail. But the irony about this so-called email scandal is this is probably the least serious of the crimes that Hillary has been involved with.
What do you think the most serious?
The most serious in my book is being a congenital liar.
Congenital means what? Doing it from birth?
Doing it from birth. Being totally disingenuous, disrespectful of other people, treating people like garbage, basically. I'm sure we've all known people like Hillary in all walks of life, people who think they own the world, they're too good for everybody else, and they treat people like dirt.
What do you think of Trump?
Trump is a little bit out there. I like his style, though. I like the way and expresses himself. Some of his ideas might not work in the real world, but he seems to have a few misconceptions, but I like the way he talks.
Would you vote for him?
That's a good question. I don't have a good answer. As far as Iran giving up nuclear weapons, well, the deal might delay their ability to get nuclear weapons. Probably won't eliminate their getting nuclear weapons. But delaying the nuclear weapons is a good thing because it gives the United States some time to come up with another plan, maybe get together with Russia and come up with an alternative plan on how to deal with that country. Quite frankly, I wish Putin would just annex Iran, just take over the country, take it over, for that matter, take over Syria, and would be done with the whole mess. It would be the greatest thing he could ever do for the United States, because we wouldn't have to deal with it, and we would be so much better off. It isn't even funny. But Putin isn't going to help the United States because, I mean, look at how he treated him. Putin bailed out Obama's ass in Syria on the Red Line retard affair when Obama was all ready to go into war against Assad's government, so he could further weaken Assad, and then ISIS would move right in and take over the whole country. So Obama was all ready to do that, and then Putin stepped in and said, wait a minute, let me take care of it. I'll get rid of the poison gas, the chemical weapons that Assad has. So pretty much Putin did pretty much most of that, bailed out Obama's ass, and then Obama throws Putin under the bus by throwing sanctions up against him. It's no way to run a railroad. It's not what you do. So anyway, I don't know what Trump's philosophy is against the sanctions against Russia, but I just think the sanctions against Russia are stupid, stupid, stupid. Now with Bernie Sanders, I like Bernie Sanders a lot. I like his plans on income equality, doing something to lower the taxes for the middle class and raise the taxes for the 1% of the wealthiest of the population. I like that idea. Unfortunately, Sanders also believes in the sanctions we have against Russia. So, again, that's something I disagree with. But the very, very bottom of the barrel of every single candidate that's running for both political parties, and there are a lot of very good candidates in both parties, but the one who is at the very, very bottom of the barrel is Hillary. Because Hillary is a worthless puke. She's no good. She's good for nothing. I don't like her. I don't trust her. And there isn't enough money on Earth and on Jupiter to get me to even go inside the same building with her. She's just no damn good. She has no business being in politics. She should be in jail. We've been driving around this rotary now for roughly 3 minutes, and rotaries, which are known as roundabouts in England, are very good places to go if you want to get into an accident, because people on rotaries, sometimes they don't yield and they like to cut you off, and there are a lot of accidents in rotaries. One of the questions on the accident form in Massachusetts is that the accident occurred at a rotary. All right. Alright, I'm off the rotary now.
So, in order to be
And I'm
part of the
gonna-
Rotary Club, you need to.
And I'm going to
Right.
pull right over where this tractor is into this construction site. Now, I have a question for the general audience who might be viewing me now. Now, you wouldn't think I would be crazy, would you?